Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to do a quick comparison to the behavior of the La Nina last year versus this year. Remember, we're in the second winter of our La Nina, and we are expecting this one to continue to fade into spring and kind of be the end of this current La Nina episode. So the map you've been looking at here goes back to Valentine's Day a year ago, and I want you to notice this. Last year, the extent of the cold water off the Baja, we call this the Pacific Meridional Mode region, versus the place where we had the coldest water in our La Nina, are much different a year ago than where they are now. Okay? This year, we've got more cold water in the Gulf of Alaska, and our La Nina is more east-focused. And what that's really doing is that's impacting the spring forecast. It's impacting the current position of the MJO. And what I want to illustrate here is that this year's spring forecast from both the European model and from the multi-model ensemble, which is what we're looking at here, look very similar, but also they look the same as they did a year ago. But last year's did not verify. It was a terrible forecast for spring a year ago. So big questions I'm going to ask are, is there a better chance of this forecast verifying? You're looking at precipitation anomalies for March, April, and May. Wetter in the Northwest, wetter along the Canadian Prairie, wetter into the Great Lakes and into the Eastern Corn Belt. Drier south and drier in the Southern Plains. That's the current outlook right now for spring. So why this is important is that if we look so far at the year-to-date precipitation, this is compared to average. There are places in the West that have yet to measure precipitation in 2022. We have a region in through here, you'll see in a few moments, that has really been missing out on a lot of snow. And our Southern Plains drought, while it's had some relief from that system about 10 days ago, we're going to watch this carefully to see if we're going to see any continued relief. There's also an area through here that's got very dry soils and has missed out on a lot of snow as well. Now, just thinking about that, this region in through here, just to make a point, let's kind of extend it like this as well. That's a large region that has missed out on quite a bit of snowfall this year. In fact, let me pull that up for you real quick. It's a map that I like to make. Percent of snow, there we go. That would be what the current percent of normal snowfall looks like. All right, so we can get a real good glimpse at a place that needs to see a lot more precipitation. Now, 1 year ago, right now, the MJO was over here in phase 7, 8, and was going to come out into phase 1. So it was on the other side of where it currently is, which is in the Indian Ocean. And if the MJO stays here in the Indian Ocean and then slowly moves over toward Australia, we know historically how that relates to the patterns we get in the Pacific jet stream. And this is what it tends to do. It tends to pull the ridge west. Now, I know I've said that a lot over the last several weeks because we've had these signals that this was going to be the eventual outcome. That ridge for the longest time sat right here and gave us northwest flow through the midsection of the country, but really just shut the west down for precipitation in the month of January. Now, if the models have got the teleconnections right, the dominant teleconnections, we should be able to get the ridge to start at least to move into the Gulf of Alaska and start to go west. That gives us more zonal flow across the U.S. It gives us an active corridor in the Northwest, an active corridor in the Midwest, and could start to fill in some of the gaps here on places that we've missed out on precip. We also tend to get more ridging over the Southeast, so it does tend to be drier and more mild here when this sets up. But we're going to look for upstream blocking in the Atlantic as well. So we distill all that down, and this is what you get. Through the end of the month, we can't seem to get this ridge farther west. We still get flow that comes around and gives us southwestern flow through the midsection of the country. That's a major difference because throughout January, we've really only seen northwestern flow like this. So that is one big shift. But watch as I play this forward. This is the end of February. As we play into the first week of March and the second week of March, you can see it. The heights are moving, well, the higher heights, the ridging is moving back toward the Aleutian Islands. And that's going to open us up for more zonal flow here. That's going to have to make the turn to curl into the North Atlantic, and that could set us up for a much more active month. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If we just look at the entirety of the month of March, let's get all this way out here, look at the United States. See how the West is seeing better chances of improved precipitation? See how this region is going to continue to stay very active. And should the pattern flatten out as anticipated, this region will not be as dry as currently forecast. And so we need to watch this very, very carefully pressing forward. This does mean more colder air will settle into the western part of the United States, and looking out there over the next 30 days, we do see that. But there will be several days of mild weather that will come into this region as we press through the month of March, based on the flow pattern reestablishing itself to do something like that, running over some sort of ridge here. Now, right now, we don't see this happening just yet. The jet stream is still very much blocked. We call this a Rex block, a high over low, and it's putting a trough, whoops, sorry about that, it's putting a trough right in through here that we're going to have to watch carefully, because this trough is going to take the next couple of days to basically arrive in New Mexico. And during that same time, this short wave is going to run over the top of this ridge, come on the back side, and kick that one out into the Mid-South. And I want to show you what it's going to do from there. Now, the issue is the models are not in agreement on the position or strength of this low, this big winter storm we're going to be talking about here later this week. Right now, the European model puts it right here on the border of Oklahoma and Arkansas, and it's going to have its front extending right over the line I'm drawing here. That's where the main frontal boundary will be. So we'll get all of this flow coming around this big high-pressure cell out over the Atlantic, bringing in that warm, moist, unstable air, and the cold front will be on the back side. This will be a multi-day event as this low runs right along this front. Now look at the difference, okay? That's the European solution. This is the GFS. The GFS almost puts the low, and by the way, it's much deeper over Kansas City. That opens up to stronger advection out of the south. The front is now much farther to the north, and that changes everything about this precipitation pattern. There's one thing the models agree on, and that is this area down here will have a 2-day, probably Wednesday and Thursday, severe weather event. We can see that right now. The Storm Prediction Center's got this outlook for Wednesday. It's a large area around the Red River Valley of the South, getting into the Mid-South where we are anticipating strong to severe storms. Expect this to move east by the time we get into the day on Thursday, and I'd like to go right into the models to show you that. So what we're going to do as we normally do, the GFS on the left and the European on the right. This all starts today as this wave moves into the northwest, so it's been spreading light snow through that area and into the mountains as we press forward all the way to Wednesday evening, and that's where I'm going to stop. So we brought in snow in through here. There was one little clipper system that came out of Alberta and has made its way over here near the Hudson Bay. It's in both models. What happens is the frontal boundary that one brings drapes right here and connects up with the upper level low over Texas, Oklahoma Panhandle region. Now notice, a lot of rain out ahead of this. Okay, very large warm sector getting all the way up into this part of Ontario. It's in the GFS too, but the GFS, watch the next frame here. So this is going into the overnight hours on Wednesday into Thursday morning. Now the GFS has that low farther to the north. The European is slower and back to the south. Regardless, this area is going to open up to severe storms. See it in through there? But notice where the snow is in the GFS versus the European. And as we play it forward, the GFS being more farther to the north, look at the snow going through Missouri, Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and Michigan. The European much, much farther to the south comparatively. I'll show you the differences in a few moments. The system's quicker in the GFS. It gets into Michigan much faster, and the European slower. Because the GFS brings it farther to the north, it takes more of its snow into Ontario and Quebec, whereas the European swipes the snow through parts of New England. Either way, the front races through the southeast, and we're going to watch Thursday for severe storms in this particular area. It's in both models. Now, I just want to show you what's going to happen after this. There's a little clipper that moves in over the Great Lakes. This would be on Friday into Saturday night. Friday night into Saturday morning. There it goes. And following that, another wave very similar to the one we just saw comes into the Pacific Northwest on Sunday. It dives down, emerges once again in the Central Plains, and then as it comes through here, sets off another system. Now, this again will be midweek next week. The European model is more aggressive in bringing it to the east and staying farther to the south. The GFS, just like the previous systems, farther to the north and deeper. And this is the solution that brings better precipitation back to the northern plains. We could again see midweek next week another round of severe weather in the corridor to the south and very heavy rain to the south as well. Let's start putting it all together and look at a few different maps. Let's talk snow first. This is where the GFS operation will run today at 12Z. Put the heaviest snow for that. So we have the clipper running north. We have the snow from the system emerging late this week, right in through here. And of course, remember, these come through the northwest first. But look at the differences between the GFS and the European. The GFS and the European. The European's much less on the snow from the clipper, and it's got the heavy snow track much farther to the south. You look right in here and watch the difference. That's the European GFS. Now the European ensemble is in between the two. The best chance of getting 3 inches of snow runs right in between those two areas. And unfortunately, this first system misses this part of the plains that really needs to get some more snowpack in there to bring up moisture. Big corridor in through here, expecting more than 3 inches, and this all comes together over in Ontario and Quebec and pushes off to the Canadian Maritimes. On the precipitation side of it, that's icy. Both systems bring in the chance for bringing in ice to this region. The first system is here. That's as the front slides east. The second system goes right over the top of it, possibly extending another large area of ice. Again, that's midweek next week. A lot of uncertainty at this. I got to watch to see the couple days before as to where the ice is going to set up. But total precipitation, let me just blow this up for you. That's the next 10 days. As both systems come through, there's a chance that a corridor right in through here could be picking up anywhere between 2 and 6 inches of rainfall with snow on the backside. After this is when the pattern begins to shift around. And remember, the GFS is wetter here than the European, which is what you're looking at. Now let's take a look at where it goes after that, because by day 10, we still have our ridge in place, but it's still in the Gulf of Alaska, which means flow does this and runs up over this ridge right in through here. So that second system that comes out next week will be here, and the models are dominated by that one, hitting that same area that the one we're going to talk about in just a couple of days is going to hit. It is after this that the West gets better chances of precipitation. But it doesn't matter. If you want to look at the European, you get this look. If you look at the GFS, same thing. Okay? The only difference is better moisture farther to the west in the GFS. Let's talk temperatures and we'll wrap this up. Here we go with today's high temperatures. We've already seen these, so let's get to tomorrow. Very warm day in the midsection of the country on Tuesday. But that's the setup for this big system, because watch this, by Wednesday, the cold air is already pushing in behind it. We open up a very large corridor of destabilized air in through here. That's why we're on the lookout for severe storms here on Wednesday, a little bit farther to the east on Thursday, because the front moves east on Thursday. See that? And a big shot of cold air comes in behind it. All the warmth builds into New England, and then we replace it with the cold front that comes swiping through. But by Sunday, we've already moderated once again here. And if we look out there day 5 through 10, this kind of tells us where that pattern's going. Preference is going toward a southeastern ridge. So the flow doing something a bit more like this. And as we go out there even farther, this is day 10 through 15. Still see that as the setup. But this is a big change over what we've seen, because remember, so many times throughout this January and early February, we've seen very mild air coming through this region. The pattern is finally starting to shift a bit, kind of changing things and bringing in a southeastern ridge and getting rid of the big blocking ridge over the west. So that's what we got to be watching, okay? I'll keep an eye on it. We'll report back to you on Thursday. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks.